Orlando, Florida. For weeks, the city was on edge. A dangerous fugitive named Markeith Loyd, on the state's most wanted list for the murder of his pregnant ex-girlfriend Sadie Dixon, was on the run. The police were closing in, but Loyd remained a ghost, always one step ahead. Then, on the morning of January 9th, 2017, a day that began like any other, the desperate search for one man would explode into a citywide crisis, forever changing the community and the officers sworn to protect it. The scene was a bustling Walmart on Princeton Street, a place of mundane Monday morning errands. In the checkout line was Master Sergeant Debra Clayton, a revered 17-year veteran of the Orlando Police Department. More than just an officer, she was a mentor and community advocate known for her work with local youth. Her day and her life were about to change. A shopper recognized the man from the news and approached Sergeant Clayton with a chilling whisper. Markeith Loyd was in the store. It was a fateful tip that set a tragedy in motion. Duty and instinct took over. Sergeant Clayton radioed for backup and moved to intercept Loyd as he exited. "Stop! Get on the ground!" she commanded. But Loyd, cornered and with nothing to lose, refused to surrender. He drew a handgun and opened fire. A chaotic chase erupted across the park. Sergeant Clayton returned fire, but she was struck down. In an act of pure evil, Loyd then stood over the wounded officer and fired again, an execution-style shot that silenced a hero. In seconds, the parking lot became a scene of carnage. The murder of a police officer in broad daylight sent a shockwave of horror and rage through law enforcement across the state. This was no longer just a manhunt, it was a declaration of war. The killing of Sergeant Clayton triggered one of the largest police responses in Florida history. Hundreds of officers from local, state and federal agencies descended on Orlando, their mission now deeply personal: find Markeith Loyd at any cost. The city became a tactical grid, a hunting ground where every shadow was suspect. The fugitive case had become a statewide emergency. What followed was a 9-day siege that held the entire state captive. How did one man evade this army of law enforcement? This series takes you deep inside the investigation and the courtroom. Subscribe to PBT Network so you don't miss the rest of this series. Every twist, every courtroom moment, every truth uncovered. It was the morning of January 9th, 2017. For weeks, a shadow had hung over Orlando. A citywide sense of fear was centered on one man, Markeith Loyd. Loyd was a fugitive, wanted for the brutal murder of his pregnant ex-girlfriend, Sadie Dixon, just a month prior. The crime shocked the community, sparking one of the largest manhunts in the region's history. Law enforcement plastered his face on every news channel and billboard, warning the public he was armed and extremely dangerous. Police briefings were tense. Every officer knew the stakes. Among them was Lieutenant Debra Clayton, a 17-year veteran of the force. She wasn't just an officer, she was a pillar of the community, a mentor known for her dedication and warm smile. She was a beloved and respected leader. That morning, her day began like any other, but then a tip came in. A shopper at a local Walmart recognized the most wanted man in Florida. Lieutenant Clayton was nearby and responded to the call, arriving at the store alone. She had no idea she was about to step into a direct confrontation. In a cruel twist of fate, the dedicated officer and the desperate fugitive were placed on a collision course. The routine day was about to turn tragic as the entire city held its breath, unaware that the hunt for Markeith Loyd was about to reach its violent, heartbreaking climax. Inside Walmart, shoppers noticed a man fitting Loyd's description. As Lieutenant Clayton approached, Loyd opened fire. Multiple rounds were fired, witnesses ran for cover, and in a matter of seconds, an officer's life was stolen. Clayton collapsed in the parking lot. Other officers rushed in, but the gunfire had already silenced her. For Orlando, this wasn't just about justice anymore. This was war. In the immediate hours after the shooting of Lieutenant Debra Clayton, the city of Orlando transformed into a fortress. A sprawling perimeter was established, with law enforcement sealing off major arteries and residential streets alike. Checkpoints materialized on every corner, bringing the bustling metropolis to a standstill. For the Orlando Police Department, this was no longer just a manhunt. It was a deeply personal mission to capture the man who had gunned down one of their own in broad daylight. Armored vehicles rolled into quiet suburban neighborhoods as heavily armed SWAT teams began a methodical door-to-door search. They moved with grim determination, clearing houses and searching backyards. The community was on edge, caught between the fear of a dangerous fugitive in their midst and the overwhelming presence of law enforcement. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every unfamiliar sound sparked a new wave of anxiety. When you have a fugitive like Markeith Loyd, who has already demonstrated a willingness to kill law enforcement, the strategy has to be overwhelming force. You have to shrink his world, cut off his resources, and apply relentless pressure. The goal is to force him to make a mistake, to reach out to an associate, or to break cover. Above the chaos on the ground, a fleet of police helicopters flooded the sky. Their searchlights cut through the darkness, sweeping across rooftops and wooded areas. Equipped with thermal imaging cameras, they scanned for any heat signature, any sign of movement. The constant deafening thrum of the rotors became the city's soundtrack, a relentless reminder that there was nowhere to hide. Simultaneously, the authorities launched a public appeal, plastering Markeith Loyd's face across every news channel and social media feed. The reward for information leading to his capture skyrocketed, quickly reaching an unprecedented $100,000. This wasn't just about money. It was a strategic move to turn the entire community into a network of informants, making it impossible for Loyd to trust anyone. Inside the tactical command post, the pressure was at a boiling point. Maps covered the walls, marked with potential sightings and dead-end leads. Radios crackled with a constant stream of information as dispatchers fielded thousands of tips from the public. Exhaustion was setting in, but it was overshadowed by a collective, unyielding resolve. The city was holding its breath, demanding justice. The largest manhunt in Orlando's history was underway, and for everyone involved, failure was not an option. Lieutenant Debra Clayton wasn't just an officer. She was a mentor, a mother, a symbol of strength in the community. Her death turned the city's grief into rage. Despite the massive presence of law enforcement, Loyd slipped through. For days, he taunted police by evading capture. Every false lead meant more frustration, more fear. He was out there, armed, desperate, and dangerous. The shooting of Lieutenant Clayton brought national attention. Federal agencies joined the hunt. This was no longer Orlando's case. It was America's manhunt. But even with the entire state searching, Markeith Loyd stayed one step ahead until one night the walls closed in, and what happened next shocked the nation. This is episode 2 of the Markeith Loyd case. If you believe Lieutenant Debra Clayton deserves justice, comment "Justice for Debra" below. And don't forget to subscribe to PBT Network for